Good morning, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel. I am back for Car Glide for 31 Days of Witchcraft. As a reminder, these prompts are created or were created by Heather Carter. I will have a link to her channel down below. Please go check it out and subscribe. Heather has some really amazing content. She talks about tarot, she talks about witchcraft, personal development, lots of good stuff over there, so check it out. What is today's prompt? I'm not awake. Oh yeah, it's something about spells. Oh yes. This is literally me. Oh my god. Spells, do you write your own or do you use pre-written or pre-done spells? Yes. Actually, no. More specifically, I do my own spell work, and a lot of it is very organic. In fact, I don't typically do a lot of pre-planning for a spell. What I do, there's got to be a better way to say that, is I think about what it is I want to accomplish, and then I think about what things I have that will support that or that make sense to me from a correspondence perspective. So typically, like today, this is what it would look like, is I would go, okay, I want to do a prosperity spell, for example. And so I'd think, okay, do I want to focus on emotional and like contentedness and emotional abundance, like Nine of Cups kind of energy, or am I looking for some like Nine of Pentacles kind of like, you know, reaping reward kind of prosperity? And so I think about what I would want. And then based on that, I would think about, okay, what crystals do I have that I could bring in to support that work? What herbs do I have that I could bring in to support that work? And I will regularly Google on the fly and be like, okay, what herbs are good for this? And then I would check that against what I have, and I would refer to my my magical herbal books, like Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, or I think it's Paul something, Master Book of Herbalism, that sort of thing. And I might check and see what correspondences I have there. And then I might decide what form I want the spell to take. So sometimes I'll do like bath spells where I'll make a sachet of herbs and oils and crystals, and I'll put it in the bath, and I'll sort of literally soak in that energy. Sometimes I'll do something a little bit more intense where I'll have some sort of circle casting and then build up a certain kind of energy, focus on a particular thing, release that energy for a purpose. There's all kinds of different ways to craft spells, but I find that I don't really know what it is I want to do until I'm needing to do it. And then based on how much time I have or what kind of thing I want to do, I will build the spell around that. So like if I had a short amount of time, I might do a small spell, sympathetic magic, where I create a sachet or a bundle or a sigil that I can quickly like write, focus on, burn, or disintegrate or tear up or whatever. There's all kinds of different things I might do. This is such a meaty conversation, and I was thinking this was going to be like my shortest one. But I am going to wrap it up, I think, because it's pretty basic. Like for me, I do organically make my own spells. That being said, I love looking at spell books, but I'm incredibly, like ridiculously, almost neurotically particular about what kind. I like spell books that focus on a few simple ingredients and focus on the, like, your intent, your focus for that spell. Spells that seem overly ritualized to me tend to not resonate very well, because when I do more ritualized work, it's very organic on the fly, like speaking words of power and things like that. It tends to feel more powerful for me to come up with that stuff when I'm in that moment and I'm speaking and I'm using those words of power versus like trying to memorize a spell. I do quite enjoy some pre-written incantations or poems or spell words or whatever. I really enjoy the little poem type things that are in the Goddess Oracle guidebook. I've really enjoyed those. I also really enjoy there's like 2 lines or so in the little white book for the Dark Goddess Tarot. I think those are also really potent. And sometimes little messages on oracle cards and things like that make wonderful, like, powerful words of power that I like speaking. Sometimes I like to read aloud the spells that come in the Witch's Moon box. Like they come on little scrolls wrapped around candles, and I've kept most of them. Some of them have particular meaning to me, so I'll read those aloud while focusing, on an altar space or on a focal point. But most of the time, what I use spell books or spell suggestions for, such as like maybe the spells that are in the Witch's Book of Self-Care. There's lots of little spells in there and little rituals. I often just use them as inspiration, which it's funny. It's actually really funny when I think about this, because when it comes to cooking, like regular cooking food, I like a recipe. I like to follow the very specific instructions, and I'm not a huge fan of deviating. I've gotten better as I've gotten older. Like as I've gotten older, I will use recipes a little bit like that. And if like I don't have one ingredient, I might sub it out or something like that, or skip it if I think it'll be fine without it, that sort of thing. But I'm still really rigid when it comes to my cooking. But oddly, I've never ever felt like that around witchcraft. Around witchcraft, even when I was feeling like I needed to use predefined spells, it wasn't comfortable, so I just didn't do a lot of spell work. I just never felt like, it didn't feel like magic to me. It felt like play acting. And I don't think I quite identified that feeling. And for a while, I was like, why does this not feel like me? And I couldn't quite figure it out. But honestly, collecting a bunch of ingredients that don't necessarily have any personal, that I don't understand how or why they're connected to that spell, and then reading words that somebody else wrote over stirring a cauldron or something, like it just never felt, it felt like I was like reading a script and acting. And I think that's the thing that became the big barrier to me doing a lot of magical work for years, is I just didn't feel natural. Once I started giving myself permission to experiment and to think about the correspondences that have meaning for me, like I'll still look them up. I'll be like, which herbs do I have that are associated with prosperity? And then I'll think about them. Like if I saw that, I don't know, what's a good example? If I saw that lavender was associated, no, this is still, I could make anything work. This is my problem. It's funny. I'm in a totally different place now, but I was just thinking, like, I'm sure there's some, okay, daisies, maybe we'll go with daisies. I can still make that work. Okay. What I'm trying to do is come up with something where, like, if I read that a particular herb was associated with prosperity. Okay, here's something. Let's say I read that a type of plant was I'm having such a hard time with this analogy, that a type of plant or herb was associated with prosperity. But I happen to know, I can't even come up with a real life example, but I happen to know that that particular plant is really hard to keep alive. It doesn't propagate itself very easily. Like, what if it's a kind of plant where like you need to like manually pollinate it or something in order for it to do what it's supposed to do, because it just doesn't do it on its own very well. Which I guess, anyway, I hope you're with me on this very rambly journey. But if I read something like that, I wouldn't want to use that herb. And this is what I guess I mean. When I hear that mint is associated, I keep using this example in different things on here, but when I hear mint is associated with prosperity, it makes beautiful sense to me, because mint is invasive, it spreads rapidly, it's green, we associate mint with minting money. That makes sense to me. So it feels right, and I'll incorporate mint into my spell. But I might read about 30 different herbs, and only a few of them, and maybe I have 20 of them, but only 10 of them feel resonant to me. Only 10 of them feel like they would make sense, and so I'll pick from that shorter list. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. I'm just doing it really rambly and really badly. But I hope you get the idea. And then I'll think of other things. Maybe I've built a small prosperity altar, and there's some things on there that maybe other people wouldn't put on a prosperity altar. I have a ladybug on my prosperity altar because they're associated with luck and with fortune, good fortune. But if you don't have that association with the ladybug, why would you put ladybugs on your prosperity altar? I'm very, very big, and I've talked about this before, in using the 9 of Cups in any prosperity magic, because money doesn't necessarily bring happiness. And so even when I'm focusing on financial prosperity, I include an element of emotional prosperity. I can work on emotional prosperity without working on financial prosperity, but I don't ever work on financial prosperity without also including that 9 of Cups-y emotional contentedness energy in some way. So I have a 9 of Cups on my prosperity altar. So this is the thing I guess I'm trying to say, or have already said, is that for me, I feel like I'm doing magic when all the correspondences make sense to me, so that I know my subconscious will make the correct connection and be able to do its background stuff to help make the spell work. And I have a whole opinion about how spells work, and that's a huge part of it, which is a discussion for another day, because I'm 9 minutes in and I thought this was going to be my shortest prompt answer. But yeah, that's that. I hope that sums it up. But yeah, yeah, I think I'm done now. Okay, so yeah, I do my own spells. I don't really use pre-written ones, but I sometimes use them for inspiration, or sometimes they can be a good jumping off point. And sometimes just different ways, spell books, especially modern ones that incorporate much simpler things, often have really good ideas to put in your like spell idea bank. Like there was a time when I would have never considered doing ritual baths as a way to do spell work, as including herbs and oils and salts into my bath as a way of setting intention and then soaking in that energy. There was a time when shower magic wouldn't have occurred to me, or even some kinds of meditation that wouldn't have occurred to me as a way to do magic. So a lot of times for me, that's what I go to spell books for, is like different ways to do spells, because like anything else, I said I was done, I'm not done. like anything else, I do tend to get in a bit of a rut about what kinds of magic I tend to do. I almost always incorporate a bath into my magical work. I love working with oils. I love working with herbs. I love making herb blends and then burning those, or sprinkling, like putting them in an incense burner, or sprinkling them into a burning cauldron. There's lots of things I like to do that I tend to go to that like my comfort zone for spells. And so what I think spell books and spell suggestions and things like that have been really good for me in my personal practice, is just shaking that up a little bit. Giving me other ideas for ways to do magic. And my practice, most of the magic I do is accessible. It's small bite-sized pieces. I usually do the biggest, most involved rituals when it comes to things like protection, or some of the stuff that leans a little more into shadowy territory, because I feel like doing that kind of work on the fly is likely to get somebody like messed with in the wrong way, right? Like I feel like that needs to be thought through very, very carefully, to make sure that you've done it properly, so that you're actually properly protected. And anything like that you do that could like impact somebody who comes for you, kind of thing, like you don't want to be careless with that kind of magic, right? At least that's my take on it. But it's just about me. It's just about like drawing in, manifesting, attracting, that sort of thing. I'm a little more loosey-goosey with it. If I just need to get a good night's sleep, I'm going to craft something pretty quick, like, and put a little sachet, toss it on my salt lamp by my bed, let it toast a little, But anyway, I'm going to stop, because I said I was done like 5 minutes ago. And then again, like 3 minutes ago. I'm really done now. I'm really done. Thank you for hanging out with me. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Remember to click the little notification bell. And if you're on mobile, make sure you've enabled the notifications, or they won't send them. That's something I found out. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. We are going to have actually tonight a eclectic witchcraft chat. We're going to be talking about tools of the craft. So if you are around this evening, or my evening, Pacific time, 5:30 p.m. Join us for that chat on the tools of the craft. That'll be really fun. The eclectic witchcraft series has been really, really fun for me. I have such a long list of topics. I don't know if it will ever be done. And I think that's really amazing. So I'm having a lot of fun with that series. Join me there if you can. Watch it after if you can't. We have great discussions afterwards in the comments. And I think that's it. I think that's it. I'm going to do it. Okay. Thank you so much. Remember, if you want to book a reading with me, you can do that over at supportivetarot.com. I'm going to go drink some coffee now and get my day started. Bye.